specifically, we're about to go into Viva Insights and what that looks like. But then also that, there's a big conversation around security and those parameters. Hopefully you got those questions answered. It's totally secure. It's completely controllable. We'll talk about some of the individual controls you can have today over your Viva experience as far as insights, but it's super valuable. But before I start sharing the slides, I only got 2 slides. The rest of it is just you watching me click around, which is fantastic, hopefully. I don't like too much slideware. But I want to start off by framing things. I always say content is nothing without context, right? What I want you to the lens I'd love for you to look through is we have to understand our people to understand our business. For the longest time, we've done hard metrics to understand how the business is doing. But COVID introduced this crazy idea that people are a business in every business that we're in, right? And I think everyone here would agree. And so Viva is about understanding your people and giving your people connection to the business. And by monitoring just how we interact with the business and with each other is going to help us do better in the business. And that's especially true for Viva Insights. So I'll pop up a couple slides, just an agenda slide, and then they'll kind of tell us about our roadmap for the day, but keep that as a lens. We're understanding the business by understanding our people. And that's key for Viva Insights. Cool, ice cold, sweet. Questions, comments, funny jokes, throw them at me in the moment. I'll be looking at the chat-ish. If I can't see them, then my lovely colleague and friend Abby will take care of me. Okay. Sweetness. All right. And then if we got time, I'll play ukulele. I'm just playing. I will not. So let's do this. Here's screen. Let's got a couple monitors going here, folks. All right. See, I told you only 2 slides. One's a title slide. Boom, that's me. By the way, if you don't know me, I'm Joshua. Pleasure to meet you. I service all of federal civilian, even do some work in DoD when the ask is there. But my goal is simple. I'm an app innovation specialist, essentially. And that just means whatever vision you have for your agency, we can probably empower that vision or accelerate that vision via an application. So hopefully I'm talking to you guys one-on-one after this about some apps that we can put into your space. One included Viva. But that's my entire goal, to make your life easier through applications such as Viva. Sweet. With that, here's our agenda. So it looks like there's 5 things, but these things will blow by. So 1, what's the goal of Viva Insights? Why? And we'll talk about that a little bit more at length, but I've kind of told you, right? To understand the business through understanding our people and better serving them in this workspace, right? Those insights, those key insights. 2, what insights looks like in Outlook, right? And so that's a very core experience. The 2 workloads that are biggest in Office 365 is Outlook and Teams, right? And if you don't include Office, you could just say the other big workload is being on YouTube. But yeah, we'll talk about that experience. 3, Viva Insights in Teams and what that experience is like. Very different. A lot of granular insights you can get through the Teams app. And then 4, managing your Viva Insights experience. Because a lot of folks, as when we talk about Viva, they feel as though a lot of times it looks like it's kind of a light switch and you turn it on and boom, you get everything, which is true. But you can, at a granular level, control what you experience and what you want to see. And that helps a ton when enjoying Viva. So we'll tailor your experience. And finally, if we got some time, I think we will, because I think I got 30 minutes here. Yeah. We'll do a Q&A. And so I'll try to keep things brief and kind of to the sweet. I'll try to keep it brief and to the point, but I'll answer questions as they go as well. Cool. Ice cold, Josh. Fantastic. That's the end of my slideware. So let me jump out of this. And the first thing we're going to talk about is Viva in Outlook. And so I've got some things pulled up right now. So let me X this out. And we'll go to some of the Viva, the digest emails or the daily briefings. These are really important. And let me make sure I got my chat up so I can see it real quick on my other screen. Cool beans. These are really important and really impactful. So a lot of folks, this is their first encounter with Viva Insights, right? I love this for 2 reasons. 1, there's way too many things going on. So real quick, by show of ones in the chat, if you have way too many emails in way too little time, put a 1. If you have way too many emails in way too little time, put 1. I know I do. That's just how it is. And if you just do everything perfectly, you can put a 2. If that's the case, these help you and I see Robin coming in. I see a lot of folks. Steven, I see Dawn. Ushi, I love that name. you probably want to prioritize certain things. So this is where Viva Insights in the mail comes in, right? So we get these daily briefing mails, and I'll show you 4 different ones that are totally different. Now, this is the first one. So you see, hi, Joshua. Have a great Thursday. Sweet. Awesome. This is not from the day, obviously. It's Friday, but oh, it is today. Maybe. But we click here and it says federal civilian teams. It said prepare for your meetings, excuse me. And it says this is the meeting. I can click here and get to the meeting. But it also says, hey, based on a thread you had with Asia is my manager, my lovely manager. Uh, she says there was a deck that she shared in a thread. So it was an email thread about this meeting. Boom, it pulled that for me. I can click on this and get access to that deck. So maybe I can brief for my meetings. Really, really cool, right? That's something that'll help me be prepared for my day. I can click view all, right? And it's more stuff that may pop up here. Let me take a look, see it's loading. Oh, it goes deep. Let me see. Tons and tons. I guess we won't go into that. We'll spare you all of the things that I can brief on, but we'll scroll down here. There's another section, commitments and follow-ups. So using just basic analytics of just wording, right? Your textual analytics, we can say, hey, it looks like you agreed to something. So apparently to Gabrielle on a chat in Teams, 2 days ago, they asked, let me know if Tuesdays will still work for you if you have another weekday preference, and I'll send you a new invite over, right? And so if I haven't followed up on that, it says, hey, you haven't actually responded to her. And also, this seems like an ask based on wording. So, oh, sweet, that makes me, and I can click this and jump back to the chat with Gabrielle and say, hey, Tuesdays work. Really cool to keep track of your asks. Does that seem kind of helpful? I say yes, right? That's just one email, though. Let's switch to another email that I got, and you get different emails based on your work trends. So let's do, which one are we on? This one. Here's another one, prepare for today's meetings. I got a meeting about SharePoint add-ins with a customer, and then I can look here and I can say, sweet, boom. This person had an ask from me, right? It says, I think that, excuse me, I think this will be okay. And essentially they're saying, thank you. And they're asking me talk about strategy and options, right? Since it knows I didn't respond to this, I can jump back into it. And so it's keeping me on pace. Now there's another piece as well, and we'll get more into this as we jump into the team side. It can actually talk to you about your trends. So here's a digest email, same as the other ones, just different context. And it's saying, hey, let's look at some insights. 21 days without quiet hour interruptions. So quiet hours or focus hours are around setting specific times for you to get work done. We'll talk about that in a second. You probably have seen it. We look at 21% of collaboration time. So about a fifth of my time is spent with other folks. The other 80% of my time is by myself. So I know how I'm kind of working there. Maybe I need to collaborate more. And then keep up with the good work, 9 days in focus time booked. So I've made sure I booked focus time 9 days so far, straight, that is. And so it's kind of keeping track of things. But even more so, I can look at my collaborators. So my primary manager, Bonnie Jones, says 8 hours of time is spent with her. I spent about 5.5 hours with John, and then 2.8 hours with Ravon or Ree. And so it shows my primary collaborators. And so it just kind of lets you know where your time is being spent. Maybe you're working on the project and you're like, maybe I'm not spending enough time with John. Me and John are supposed to be getting this project done by Monday, right? Maybe I'm spending too much time with other people. So that's really impactful. Finally, I got one more email queued up for you. This one's pretty cool. So if I look here, it tells me more about some of the insights we talked about before. But if I scroll down, it says top meeting categories. So I don't know, put a 1 in the chat if you're like me and you have categories on your calendar. Put a 1 in the chat. So in my calendar, I have different categories for team syncs, focus hours, leadership, stuff like that. Maybe it's just me. But this will take those and look and say, hey, here's where you're spending most of your time. So 27% of my time, and it says little green arrow up from last week, is spent on focus hours. 18% of my time, about a fifth of my time, is spent when one-on-ones on teams, which that makes total sense because I have a lot of team members that I do one-on-ones with on part of everybody's business. And then leadership. I have leadership syncs that are specific, and a tenth of my time, 10% is spent there. This gets really, really cool once you dive into it further on the team side. But these are just little bites of your activity, right? And the color is great too. Bonnie said you get the color deal too. But yeah, so these are some of the digest emails. This helps you dip your toe into Viva. Really, really cool. Any questions so far or thoughts so far on this? Let me ask you a question. Who has these turned on? By a show of one, put these if you have this turned on. Two, if you have it turned off. One, if you have this turned on. Two, if you have this turned off. Let's see. Take a look at the chat. So Robin says she's got it turned off. Okay. Arthur says one. Lucia says two, turned off. What about the rest of the time? Robin, the rest of my time I'm playing ukulele. I'm just playing, not really. It'll be uncategorized meetings and things like that. Sweet. Perfect. All right, so let's jump, and I want to show you one more thing in the Outlook space, okay? So there's this thing called the Viva Insights. It's the add-on for Outlook, and if you click it, it's up in the top right-hand corner. It may be for you. You can actually move it around. If I click this guy, give it a second, it'll load up. Let me see. Hopefully, let me see. Make sure I'm in the right space for it to load up. Going once, going twice. It may not be loading up for me, guys. Demo gods may be working against me. One quick second. All right, let me do it here. All right, here we go. So, and I'm going to, do this. All right. So if you look here, there's a bunch of stuff that pops up here. If you have the other Viva suites in here as well, like topics and things like that, it can branch off into those things. But for right now, I'm going to show you this as an action pane. If you come here, there'll be recommended actions based on you and your workflows. Really, really cool. So if I come down here, it says, hey, you should probably set up your quiet time. Viva Insights can help you protect your quiet time from work-related notifications. It probably sees that my calendar is stacked. And so I should probably take that time and step away from the business, recoup, things like that. And if you want to, we can click it. I'm not going to click this here because we're going to get more into this on the side of Teams, but really cool. Add important people. Say, get reminded of tasks and unread emails from important people. This is huge. Okay, so how many of us have managers? All of us, all right? How many of those managers are important people? All of them. And then you have key collaborators, like one of mine is Abby or John. And in the midst of this battlefield that is the email, you get so many asks and tasks, but they're different priorities, right? And so maybe as you fluctuate through projects or just phases in the business, you have different important people. You can set this up. I won't do it here because you can do it in Teams. You can click this, and then you can pick out who are those important people. Those people will then surface to the top of your emails that you get, those digest emails, also to the top of your Teams experience in the productivity section of the Viva Insight app. We'll see that here in a second. But that's kind of cool to make sure, hey, the top asks from my top people are there when I need them, right? Very, very key, right? And it'll also suggest important people based on frequency of email and communication. So maybe you're constantly talking to a customer or a partner. Hey, do you want to add this person? So you'll see down here, this emails from people that I don't usually talk to, but maybe I've been talking to for a certain amount of time, right? Really cool. And then emails that may need your attention based on that textual analysis, based on, hey, this sounds like an ask, this sounds like a task. I could click on here and say, you have 4 unread emails that might really be important, right? One of them's from Bonnie, that probably is important. Others from my buddy Tim, a colleague, really, really cool. Come down here, I can see catch up on documents. There are 22 documents you haven't read yet. I should probably look at those. Those are attachments and emails, right? And so it's a way to kind of parse through your email in a very, very categorized, easy way. Does that make sense? If any of this seems a little impactful, put a 1 in the chat. If it seems a little impactful or something that you might use. I know it's impactful for me. They do. Ooh. Abby says 1. I obviously say 1. Things like that. Steven says 1. Sweet. Awesome. And there's more to talk about here as well. We'll jump into, we say Deneen. I like that name. Deneen says 1. We're going to jump to the team side here in a second. Any questions on this? You can come off mute, 1 or 2. Dawn says. Any questions on this before we jump to the other side of things in Teams and that experience? Sweet. So we'll jump to Teams, and before I jump, just to let you know, we'll go into the app, and there's different areas of the app, and we'll go through it kind of bit by bit. But on the back end of it, we'll talk about how to manage that experience and get what you want out of Viva, okay? I can't show you everything. I'll kind of scratch the surface. So the goal is for you to get something that makes you curious. And then a curiosity leads you to want to engage with Viva on your own time, right? So let's go here. Let me click this. Give me a second. And voila. All right, you should be able to still see my screen. It is adjusting. All right, perfect. So over here, we have the Teams Viva experience. In my opinion, the best way to engage, right? I think there's a lot of value in what I just showed you in Outlook. There's a different set of value here. So this is pinned to my left-hand rail, as we advise all our customers to do, just to make it kind of in arm's reach, digitally speaking. But here we have the Viva Insights app. And so you'll see these 4 sections along the left side. You have home, well-being, productivity, and teamwork. We'll go through each of them, not every part of each of them, but give you kind of a flavor for what they're for. And then I want to shoot your eyes to the top right-hand corner. It's very kind of tough to see, but this is where you go to the settings, right? And there's other things here as well, but settings, we'll jump into this in a second. That's where we curate our experience and say, do we want to get these emails? What do we want to see in our emails? How do we want to set up our focus time? Who are our key collaborators? All those granularities exist in settings, and that surfaces here in this app and also in Outlook. So that's how you curate your experience. We'll go through that in a second. So on the home tab, it's very personalized. And these are all these tiles. They'll look totally different for each person based on your work streams. That's kind of key here in Viva. It's always personalized. But things that are recommended for you can send praise to colleagues. I think that's fantastic. Just something to keep them riled up. Promote healthy meetings and norms. I'll show you this on the back end when we're kind of talking about curating your experience, but you can set up plans to encourage best practice for meetings, like shortening meetings or getting feedback from your colleagues on how the meetings went. So maybe next time you put a different agenda, a shorter agenda, stuff like that. And you can do things, even set up focus plans between colleagues. So maybe if you know you're talking to Jim all the time or Jane all the time, and you guys are working on a project, maybe all of you have the same focus time. So when it's time for y'all to get heads down, maybe not on the call, but I can always ping John or Jane or Jim or Jane, knowing that they're not in a meeting at the same time. Works beautifully for long extended projects. Okay. And the quiet time and things like that. I'll come down because I don't want to spend too much time on here because this is really a surfacing of all the other tabs. But there's also some inspirational library stuff here. This is kind of set up by your organization. These are all articles to kind of help you get through anything that's happening in the business climate. So the new manager 101, nurturing employee resiliency through disruption and change. These are articles that are supplied by Microsoft. And I believe there's a way to curate other sources as well. We have Harvard Business Review, stuff like that. Just something to kind of read a noodle on and think about. But let's jump into the well-being tab. So the well-being tab is a tab that has a lot to do with the fact that we're working from home now and there's different norms, okay? When we look over here, they say take action on your well-being. So what do they mean? No meeting day plan, that's really cool. So maybe Fridays are no meetings for you. You can schedule that. And so create a rhythm to your work stream. There's a lot of chaos that happens. Like how many people just throw time on your calendar all the time, right? There's a lot of chaos that happens, but you want to reduce meeting fatigue. As soon as we jump into COVID, I noticed that it's just people had more meetings than what they did in person, and then it'd be back to back to back. And I don't know if that made us more productive or not, but it definitely made us more stressed. So that's what that's about. Focus plan, fantastic. I talked about that. Some of these things will first surface on the home tab, like I said before. But what I really want to talk about down here is act with intention. This is pretty cool. So if I look at focus, this is a place where I can easily book focus time. It's looking at my calendar and saying, what are places where I don't currently have meetings, right? From Monday, April 24th. So it's preparing me for the next week. Places where I don't have meetings that I should probably have some focus time. So I already have a scheduled focus time from 3 to 5 on Mondays, right? That's my time. So it's really that's 3 to 5 Central. That's 4 to 6 Eastern. So that's a great focus time for me. And then I can add more focus time. And if I click this button here, it's going to go to Tuesday. So, hey, what time should you have booked on Tuesday for focus time? So on and so forth, Wednesday. And it's an easy way to just click and say, here's 1 or 2 hours, here's 30 minutes for me to focus. And you'll see there are different increments. So here is 30 minutes, whereas here is 2 hours. Here is 1 hour. And it's intelligently selecting those times based on what's on the calendar, what historically has rhythmically been on the calendar, right? So maybe you have a meeting here, 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 but there's an opening finally. Maybe you want to use that time to focus. So there's a nice little algorithm of understanding you that goes into picking these times, right? And I want you to know when you go into the focus time, it is a do not disturb time. So it reflects in teams to where people can't get through to you. If you have important people, then those people can get through, and that can be made through. You can pick those people in settings up here in the top right of Teams. Go to settings, and if you go to, there we go, privacy, you can put on where are we? Priority access. So settings, privacy, priority access. That'll tell you the people that can get through. I don't want to go too deep into this, but I have all my managers. I have people that Abby's there. So anytime, even if we're on Do Not Disturb focus mode, I can make sure she can get through to me, right? Maybe she's a higher priority than, guy named Josh, right? So just keep that in mind. If you haven't used this feature, it's fantastic. Put your manager on there, put your key collaborators on there. It's cool. So that's one thing here. Again, I can't tell you everything, but I'll tell you some other stuff as we go to productivity. This is my favorite tab because this is what tells you what you're missing, right? At the very bottom of this page is where I want to get to. Here we go. Suggested tasks. So you remember how I was talking in Outlook, we had those asks and tasks that were coming through and saying, hey, based on what I'm seeing in your email, this person's asking this of you, this person's asking that of you. This consolidates all that, and you get to see all of them, right? And so I can see right here, Rob, I have some unread documents from him from April 14th. I should probably open them up. And I can click that document and it pulls it. This is information that comes through Teams and Outlook, so it consolidates the two largest workloads in Microsoft 365. I have some unread documents from Kara, right? Also from April 14th. I can jump in and look at that. And if there were tasks, it come through in the same way. If it looked like someone had asked me something, then I would see it. And I can view all down here, right? So I have a ton that I can go through, okay? So these are all my high priority tasks right here. Over here it says you haven't RSVP'd for this event. When someone asks me, let them know if you can make it. So it kind of put that together. I haven't RSVP'd. They asked, can you make it? And then I can RSVP from here if I so choose. So I'll accept that event. Boom. And now it's on the calendar. It's kind of helpful, right? To kind of consolidate those asks and tasks. Another thing that's on here that I kind of want to get through is, here we go, your meeting habits. This is cool because you want to know how you're using your time. And this is probably the last thing I'll show you on this tab. You can see what meetings that you're probably, how many meetings are, less than 1 hour, okay? And then also, how many meetings did you actually RSVP to? So things you cared about, so 100% of those. Or if you didn't RSVP to them, then are you spending time in meetings that you probably don't need to be? So there's insights behind these insights. How many meetings are you not multitasking in? That's this one right here. So I did multitask in 98% of my meetings. Most of my meetings are presentation-based, demo-based. I'm really clicking through the software. But maybe you see this as, 10%. And that means you're probably on meetings where you're passive. And should you really be on those meetings if you're not supposed to really be engaged? I don't know. You tell me. But this is a great way to get a portrait of your time and how you're using it. I encourage you to click through some of this stuff on your own time. Finally, before we get into how to curate your experience, this last tab is teamwork. So it just shows, number of collaborators. Collaborators are defined by people you email and message decently regularly, like once a week or so. That I think that's the threshold for collaboration, and lets you know how much time you're spending in your working hours, and of course collaboration time outside of working hours. That 1 hour probably belongs to a guy named John Scott. I work a lot with him outside of hours, and then you can also see your communication habits. And so 87%, how much of your time was spent collaborating with peers? 87% available to focus, and 13% collaboration. And this goes on and on. You can see more details. But this is the teamwork tab. Finally, because I got about 4 minutes left, I believe, I'll show you how to curate your experience. You should probably really key in on this because things are as impactful as you make them or curate them to be. So we'll go to.
Josh, you have more than 4 minutes. Should you need it, we are the only ones left closing, so take your time.
Okay, sweet. Well, I can slow it down a little bit, but I won't go too slow. We'll go to settings real quick, and this is pretty fun. There's a lot going on the left-hand rail. Again, I won't go through every bit and byte, but I'll give you a taste for it. Let's go to like your work week. Some people have different work weeks, right? Usually it's Monday through Friday, but maybe some people do, I don't work on Fridays, or Wednesdays I can't work, whatever the case may be. You can set that here. That'll change how you are alerted from Viva, and then also focus hours and things like that. And you can have those hours set to where, hey, you're not working on Wednesday, and now it blocks that day for you. I will not do that because I do work on Wednesday. I think most of us do. And then, of course, setting your time zone. That's by default. It follows the time zone of Teams. But you can also set your hours. Maybe you're a 10 to 6er or 9 to 6er, right? That's going to impact focus hours and how you get your notifications, right, from Viva. There's a piece called, let me go to protect time, because I like this one a lot. So here it says, show scheduling suggestions to align email delivery with working hours in Outlook. So schedule send suggestions. So it's going to, just like those digest emails, it may send you another suggestion, and you can have it to where it only does it during working hours, things like that. There's another one here. Lunch hours are huge. Since I've gone full remote, and I've been remote for a while, but since everyone's going full remote, I forgot to eat, and I intermittent fast too, so that's a problem. And so maybe 12 to 1 is your lunchtime. Maybe it's 1 to 2. Whatever that looks like, you can add a recurring calendar event to protect this time, so you actually get a time to take a bite. Because if you're like me, I get hangry. So I got to have a bite. That's really cool. And you can also have recurring plans for focus time. So I've already set mine up. And so it'll ask you a few questions and then automatically start to put time on your calendar for you to focus. So it asks you, how much focus time would you like to schedule every day? Say about a couple hours, right? We have an 8-hour day. I want a couple hours to kind of focus on email and getting some stuff done. And you can drop that down and do 1, 2, or 4, okay? When would you prefer to schedule your focus time? I know my mornings are usually packed in the afternoon, so after 12 is probably when I want to do it, so you can do that. And then don't schedule focus hours earlier than 8 a.m. Please, God, don't. I won't even be alive at 8 a.m., right? So that's a big thing. And would you like the Teams reminder to begin focus hours? I say yes. And so you get a little pop-up on the bottom right hand of your screen saying, hey, we're entering focus mode, right? And then finally, would you like to silence Teams chat notification during focus time? This is huge. If you want to just say, and this is very important, if you say mute notifications, then you won't get any chats, right? You'll get them, but you won't be alerted of them, right? So you can go to chats and read them, but you won't see them pop up. I actually suggest people to say allow notifications, because what will happen is you still want to be aware of things, but you don't want meetings to be booked on that time. And so focus mode for me, or focus time for me, is twofold. It's about people knowing that I'm busy, and then also not being able to book over that time. So I would highly suggest saying allow notifications if you don't mind. But if you have a noisy space, then you probably want to mute them as well. And then based on this little algorithm you put together, it'll start to block time on your calendar in those spaces that it sees. Make sense? Kind of cool? Love this. There's more to talk about here, but I can't go through everything. There's a piece about reflection, and this shows up, if you kind of see, I'll go back for a second. Reflection shows up, I'll show you afterwards, as how you're feeling. Now, a lot of people are a little wary of this because they don't want their managers to see personal insights. If I say I'm feeling good or bad, or whatever the case may be, that manager can't see Josh is feeling bad, right? From manager insights, as that rolls out later on, they can see an aggregate view, if they have a team of 20 people, of what's the overall feeling of your team this week, across the month, so on and so forth. But it will never single out Joshua or Abby or anything like that. And also, it cannot show the managers anonymized data if you don't have a certain threshold of people, right? So if you have 2 people who are contributing to this, then, and there was probably Josh and Abby, who knows, it's not going to show the manager. It's going to say we don't have enough information. So you're never at risk of being singled out for sharing your sentiment and your insight. Really important. And if you want to see how that shows up, here's where you can have a reminder to maybe start using Insight, and it'll pop up and say, how are you feeling? You can say, I'm feeling good, bad, overwhelmed. We'll go through what that looks like in a second. But when that shows up, if I click Viva Insights again, go back to home. Home, it'll show up in the well-being tab and also home. So I'll go to well-being. At the very bottom, it says reflection history. So how you feeling? And I can say, I feel very good. Fantabulistic, right? Boom. And you can look at your history of that over the 7 or 30-day range. And again, it's just about seeing what the work environment is. It's more impactful for the manager all up, to be honest. But if you want to contribute to that, that's fantastic. We'll go back here. Another one we kind of talked about already, protect your time. This has to do with scheduling things, right? But I want to go to effective meetings, right? So meetings, I don't know if they're inherently effective. I can't be sure, but sometimes you waste a lot of time in meetings. So there's a few things here you can do. One, and I'll go through it not in, I'll try to go through it in order, but one thing here is shortening your meetings, all right? And that'll be right here. You can shorten your meetings and say, okay, shorten duration for meetings, end event early or start event late. So they'll do a 5-minute buffer, or it can be 8 or 10 minutes, right? So if you know that usually you only need 25 or 30-minute meeting, you can say, I'm going to end events early. I usually pick to do that because I find that starting late, I don't know, starting late for me is a no-go. I'm usually on the hour, but pick your poison. And then 1 hour or longer, right? So if the meeting is 1 hour or longer, do I want to shorten about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes? So that's a really cool way to save your time and also stop you from having to deal with back-to-back meetings. If you ever had a sandwich of a day where it's like 3 meetings back to back, they're all 1 hour, this could be a really good way to shorten that and give yourself a 5-minute bio break or just a time to breathe and get a snack or something. So really impactful. And it will automatically do this for you. So when you schedule 30-minute meetings, it'll shorten it to 25. Or if you chose to have begin events late, then it'll shave 5 minutes off the time it began. Pretty cool. I like this. Boom, boom. Turn this off for a second. Recurring one-on-one meeting notification setting. So Viva Insights will send a reminder 1 day before your next one-on-one meeting, so you can adjust your calendar, add meeting topics, all that jazz. And so this is a really cool one. I have a ton of one-on-ones. And so it always gives me a reminder, hey, this is popping up. And so I think to change that, the calendar invite or update an agenda, this works really well if you have directs under you. Or if you just have a lot of team collaborations going on where you collaborate with Jane or Jim all the time, just to have that reminder. I love effective meetings. It's a big fan of this. There's also a survey component at the very top. You can turn it on to make sure at the end of your meetings that you schedule, there's a little box that pops up and there's a few questions that are asked around the effectiveness of the meeting. Would you do it again, or what would you change? That's great for managers to get insights on their subordinates. So that's great. And then let's go to privacy, because I think this is a big piece for a lot of folks here. So I have Viva Insights turned on, right? And that means I get everything. Viva Dashboard, Insights content, daily briefing emails, digest email, Outlook add-in, all that jazz. Focus plan, quiet time. This is where you have the option. So if your agency turns it on, which we encourage everyone to, because it's a free component to Viva Insights, right? If you turn it on, you can just instruct people that they can turn it off for themselves. So you're not at the mercy of this thing, right? If you want to turn it off, fine. If you want to turn off certain components of it, the Outlook add-in, you can turn that off. Or just the digest emails, those daily emails, you can turn that off. So maybe you can, you can take away from some of the noise in your inbox. I personally keep them on because they help me sort through the noise, right? And it's not a badgering sort of email. Only comes once a day, so I keep them on. But this is where you can turn those things off. Who did not know where to turn it off? Put a 2 in the chat if you did not know where to turn Viva Insights off at, and now you know, or maybe everyone knew. Let me go here. Someone new. That's really the last piece I kind of want to show here. And there's more we can talk about, but I'll kind of reserve some time for Q&A. And that way, if you have questions, I can click through and show you real time. But this is Viva Insights. It's meant to protect your time, help you understand how you're using your time, and help understand the people and thus understand the business a little bit better. Time for some open Q&A.
Josh, while the questions come, can we tap into one other thing, and that is about the inherent security questions? We did it at the top, but I also want to put it at the back, like just to remind people, because there's always concern about that. So might as well address it head on.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what component is it security around how data
Who can
is.
see? I think it's who can see.
Who can see?
Who
Yeah,
can
for
see?
sure.
Where does it go? All of that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll kind of address it component by component. Your Viva, so your reflection saying how you feel or how you're spending your time. So Josh spends all his time, with John Scott by collaboration. So I'll kind of show you as I speak. Let me go home. And let me actually go to productivity in a second. So you can see that I'm spending this many hours focusing and this many times in team syncs and also my key collaborators. That is seen by me. And there is a component of manager insights where there's an aggregate view, but it's anonymized and it's not about who's doing it. It's about, hey, as a team, we're seeing that only this percentage of time is spent on focus hours, right? Or this percentage of time is spent doing this or that. That's how that is seen, or uncategorized meetings. It never singles out the individual, and it actually can't even report unless there's a certain threshold met. So that way you can't do some funny fast math and say, oh, that's Josh. Josh is doing that, right? So that's really important to you to understand. Another thing is, so you're not singled out, it's anonymized information as it funnels up to Manager Insights. If you all have Manager Insights. Manager Insights is a paid component. We'd love for you to have it. But as of now, most people just have the free component of Viva Insights, and that's fantastic on its own too. So you got that anonymized piece. So you're never in danger of kind of being seen. Another piece of this is this, you all are collecting this information. This information was already there, and it used to be in something called, it wasn't Delve, what was it? My Analytics. It's called My Analytics. So this is the recreation and consolidation of products of the past to make much better. And so we're not doing anything new, and Microsoft doesn't receive any of this information. Not only do we not receive it, we genuinely don't care to. We're not in the business of collecting your data. So this information is housed with you in your Office 365 tenant. We do not ever touch, see, collect any of this. This is for your folks to understand your folks. So that's another piece. Hopefully that answers most of the security questions. Any other hard security questions? Where data is stored, things like that. And you can come off mute. You don't have to type.
Well, you have to type your name into the chat and I will take you off of mute.
Oh, yes. Yeah, do that.
Yeah, sorry, y'all. It's just easier when we've got a large audience.
Yes, I'm not seeing any, really.
It has been an information-filled day, so.
It has. Yeah.
Right?
Virtual round of applause for you all who have kind of hung in there this whole time. Where's my round of applause? Boop, there you go. With that, that's really the end of the presentation here. If there were questions, I could dive deeper into the application click for click. But as of now, as long as you got the idea that Viva has a lot of value as far as understanding your people and thus understanding the business, I think we're squared away here. Thank you all so much for listening.
All right.
Abby.
Josh.
What time was I supposed to end? I thought I had 30 minutes and we're approaching 45.
You went over, but it's okay because we kind of had a buffer. This was a